was telling jokes for the first 10 minutes or so, but unfortunately it looks like not today. So I have far fewer jokes and I am much less funny. So let me see if we can clear out this. Sadly, this session has been canceled because that is no longer true. Mark, is that something you guys can get rid of on that bit of information?
Is that what's appearing on your screen at the moment?
I just have the my slides are queued up, but then it says with the cancellation above it.
That just might be a glitch. I'm not too sure, since you're sharing that PDF, why that displays it. If you try just move onto the next page and see if that disappears.
There we go. Okie doke.
Alright, so it looks like, I don't know what happened there. It seems like it's a part of the PDF, but, well, that's how it appears anyway.
No problem. So I have a new one up here, so let me get that shared. Okay, all right. Well, thank you all for attending. This one should be a little bit more smooth than the last session, which had some technical difficulties. So this one will be recorded and will be available on the live session, or as one of the recorded sessions. My name is Joseph Thibault. I work at a startup in Baltimore, Maryland, in the USA. We my company's name is Straighterline. We provide some low-cost college courses. I've been working in e-learning or online education since 2007. This is my presentation, which is kind of a distillation of some of the research and all of the plugins and all of the Moodleness that I've seen over the last several years as I have either explored it for work or explored it for my through Moodle News. How about now? Well, hopefully it's not too bad. If you do, if it is causing more problems than it's worth, please let me know before we go too far. So, anyways, without further ado, I will now just do that. I was trying to speak that all the marketing of the first started going. So I'm coming from traditional higher education into the US. I did not take any online courses when I was in college, except for which was delivered me. I'm actually using headset. I'm speaking through the mic. That's really strange because the audio should be going only through the computer right now, and not through the mic, not through the back of the computer. So is this better? 100%? Trying to figure out which one is preferred. This is better. Okay. This is unfortunately not with the mic. So we are working through the computer. So as long as this is okay, we're going to press on. So generally my education was pretty typical of college students. So in the classroom, face-to-face, not allowed of online learning except for just getting a little bit of a touch of some online learning resources through WebCT and some other course materials like that in the past. So in college, I didn't have very much experience to it. We did my education for my master's was very much focused on traditional higher education administration, and as it was changing a little bit, kind of talking about the budget constraints and some of the other issues very early on in the as college education was starting to change and be disrupted around 2005 and 2006. So after graduating my master's, I struck out with a small startup which was providing free Moodle to users across the U.S. And then during my time there is when I started reviews and started blogging really proactively about Moodle, and signed up around 60,000 users who were using Moodle for free. So that was the kind of the history or a short history until I got started with Straight which is a for-profit. We're providing all online learning for college students, and we're doing the lowest level courses for college students. And currently we're using Blackboard. So don't hold that necessarily against me, as we are making a switch to Moodle very quickly. So this is just an example of what I thought was originally kind of the perfect classroom. This is a student dashboard, and this is pulling course listings from many different Moodle sites. So this is much more similar to my Moodle or something like that. This is just a second iteration of that, and I think that this was getting started, and me being very kind of singularly involved in the actual development and kind of aesthetic development of what I thought was the best type of learning environment. So now working at a new startup, we're pretty successful so far. We're doing some really cool stuff, and we are now building what I think will be the perfect classroom. So we are looking at Moodle as a learning management system. We have much more technical depth and prowess in our staff, and we're going to build a very cool learning environment for students to deliver college courses. So all of my research so far and all of the stuff that we've been testing with Moodle, this is more or less some of that information will be kind of shared here. So we are, while we're still using Blackboard, delivering about 38 courses through Blackboard. Very shortly we'll have about 100 courses plus delivered through Moodle. That will likely be at the end of the year. And it's, I think, the most important aspect to know is that our courses are currently self-paced. So we are making learning is the constant. The time is the variable, so students can take as long as they want or as short as they want as they're going through the courses. Similar as a student self-learning and on OpenU's platform, similarly they can do that but earn credit through the company called Straight-Line. So we are getting very close to launch and to migrating all of our courses, and some of the stuff that's reflected in the next pages will be shown here. So a couple of other things just to kind of preface the presentation is that there's a very big movement now in education for massive online open courses. So MOOCs are very kind of hitting the mainstream, and then you can see that with a lot of startups like Udacity and Coursera and some other groups like that, which are providing very high volume. Lots of students are enjoying them, and they're very, very small staff that's doing it. So Moodle is also providing some really great tools in order to do some very high or large scale course offerings. I think that this is great. So we're seeing that Moodle is evolving very rapidly. There's lots of new tools out all the time. There's lots of third-party tools being contributed, and more or less, I think Moodle is outpacing its competition very, very quickly, and that's we'll explore a couple of those different ways that's doing so in the next slide. So which brings us to the present. What makes a perfect course? It's not necessarily the right question. I think the right question is, how do we deliver courses for 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 students with just a few people and limited resources? And that's ultimately is the goal to make to serve as many students as possible with the limited resources. So currently, the notion that there is a set number of students in a class size, I don't necessarily believe that is the case anymore, especially for online education. It just doesn't make sense that online doesn't scale as easily as every other ed market is scaling with the advent of online education or online tools. So Moodle is just one of those ways, and is providing some really great tools to implement or to, instead of mirroring the standard delivery of courses online, that this is a really great way to build capacity far beyond the scales that we were previously talking to. So one anecdote that I can kind of quickly speak to is that in California right now there are budget cuts, and there are constraints on how many students can take a particular course, and these are even at the online level. So this is based on tax dollars and stuff like that. So that seems to be a problem, since it doesn't really cost that much more money per student to deliver a course online. It does certainly when you are in an actual classroom, but the same courses with digital content in an online learning management system should be able to allow for many students far beyond any constraints of the actual physical classroom. So how do we do this? And I think that the answer is really two parts: it's policy and technology. So not only is it tools, but it's also some of the thinking and the policies that go into how you can actually deliver courses at a huge scale online. So that's what we were going to talk about. So I like to think that a course is like a well-balanced breakfast. It's a kind of made up of multiple pieces, and everything going together hopefully will cure your hangover, like this great Irish breakfast, or either that or get you ready to go to the hospital for a heart attack. But the great content is necessary. It's not necessarily always done around great content, and I've seen some really great examples of good online courses that were built around farcical concepts or not maybe not really even based around a course, but you can illustrate the power of a great course with the tools and kind of the policy set up without necessarily having good content. Now, that being said, there is a lot of great content available. So there's a ton of great content available. There's just this link here that's on Moodle News, but Open University has great content. And I think the cost of delivering content or the cost of content creation is falling to zero. So we have a lot less course materials, or there's a lot more course materials that are available, and a lot more information that is available online, ready to deliver as part of either lectures or stuff like that through OpenCourseWare or OER, et cetera, et cetera. Siggy, did you have a question? You want to just ask it in the chat? So what I'm aiming for as far as the kind of the tools or the policy that go into creating online courses, I think are aesthetics, and that's kind of the look and feel of the course, the structure, which also has a little bit to do with look and feel, but also is some policy matters insofar as how students are handled or how they're enrolled and stuff like that. The tools that you're doing, and that we have a lot of great third-party modules, and there's a lot of great tools already built into the core of Moodle, and it's just selecting which ones make the most sense, not trying to clutter the courses, not trying to make courses more difficult with technical learning curves and stuff like that. The other two factors, which more are about policy, but are partly solved through technology, is security and credentials, meaning setting up the way that you can identify that a student is a student, and likewise the way that you can provide a student a credential that is worthwhile and that has value to them. So in terms of aesthetics, I'm sometimes think that I'm one of the only ones beating this drum, but I really love a learning management system that looks nice, and I think that students value that as well. And quite simply, I think it's, would you rather learn on a site that looked like this, which is nice. I do like the wood grain. It's nice for an old-fashioned car or something like that. But but ultimately, I think what students are aiming for is something more flashy. Something that's live or seems alive from the student view. They know what to go next because it's flashing them when they're logged on, or they have a little notification or something like that. And I think that most of the learning management system development these days is happening with more flash, and it's a couple of different reasons why this is important. And one is making students more comfortable, giving them a site that is attractive to log onto. But likewise, I think there's a lot of work that can be done to provide students very simple and elegant ways to access the information that they need with fewer clicks. And I think that ultimately his goal is, how do we serve up the content that the student needs next as quickly as possible, and in the most, how do we eliminate that learning curve? So this is actually the newest Blackboard release, which was all about aesthetics, which is, I think, timely because Moodle also embarked on a very similar goal. And this is the outcome of their Service Pack 9 or Service Pack 8, codenamed the Ocho. So right now, what they had basically unveiled was multiple new course formats, which mostly are based around like project or weekly or standard. It's a little bit different than how Moodle operates, and also some kind of drag and drop capabilities, and also some very kind of simple and effective notifications to the end user, specifically the course builder, on whether editing is turned on, what is available to edit, and editing icons being kind of shown as students highlight different things. So this is what I have found has been super interesting, is that when this was launched, which I think in February, within 2 or 3 weeks, a already we're seeing some of the same features available within Moodle. So this is the new cover theme by New School Learning. The rocket theme and Aardvark Blackbird also kind of accomplishes, where it's when you scroll over or when you move your cursor over resources when editing is turned on, and the editing buttons being much more obvious as whether they're turned on or not. It's eliminating a lot of the clutter and a lot of the other kind of wonkiness with Moodle that we've seen in the past. So this is just one example where Moodle is making lots and lots of strides. That would see some really cool stuff, and it really can match ultimately what other learning management systems are doing, and what is becoming very quickly the kind of the best or standard practice for how we're showing notifications to students or teachers, or showing editing or hiding those icons and other information that doesn't necessarily need to be displayed at all times. So we're seeing much simpler interfaces, and I think that's one thing that is going to be really great and key moving forward. Another issue with the aesthetics, and more so for tools, is compatibility. And so one quick example is that when you're serving up content, it's great if it looks nice, that's for sure. But if it doesn't work on all browsers or all devices, then there are some limitations to how effective it can be. So ultimately, students will want to learn where they prefer. So having it available or having it, HTML5 versus Flash is probably a way to go better. So our age ranges, I was talking to somebody about this weekend, anywhere from 13 to 75 or older. We've served college courses too, so it's very disparate. The majority of our students are over 35, and that is we're seeing that pretty in line with the growth rates in online education in the U.S. Adult learners are by and large the majority these days. So being mindful of browser compatibility is also a must. Now, as far as structure, I think really there's two things that I am looking for and looking to implement to eliminate the learning curve for students, and that is showing students the progression of a course. So what is the roadmap that they need to take in order to complete it, and then reflecting also the progress that they've made. So two ways is giving students a knowable course recipe, if you will, or a checklist or some type of information that cues them into the scope of the course and the time that they should be spending on it, and also then rewarding them with information based on how far they have come and what's left as they're moving through it. So we're trying not to leave students ever wondering what or how they should be doing something next. We use very simple or effective checklists, which are just text, but there's some really great tools that can be used to make it more automated and to make it more alive, like it will when you're talking about Facebook myths of a course site. And that's important. So one of the things that I think every course could do, especially in an online setting, is imagine if you didn't have a day-to-day meeting with students or something like that. What could you do to make the course more self-service? And if you're putting any resources online, and even if you're doing or queuing the online portion of your course up in a classroom setting, there are ways to make it very easy for the students to know that, even if they weren't paying attention, I suppose that can happen sometimes, that when they log on, they're seeing the exact instructions of what they should be hitting next on the page, or what's due next and stuff like that. So Moodle has some really effective ways to do that, kind of built into its structure, and these are kind of tapping some of those and using some of the other new tools available to do that. So one of my favorites right now, and I can't wait for this, is the display each topic on a page, which makes a course, when designed correctly, it becomes a linear progression, almost like flipping the pages of a book rather than scrolling or using the jump to method to go look at different pieces of the course. I think that this is going to be a really great way to clue students in on what they should be doing next. So I can't wait to put it into effect in our own Moodle when we have our courses ready, and I think it's going to be awesome for any students and any course structure, really, especially when it's applied to a sequential course structure. So many of our courses and many college courses, that's pretty typical of a course structure, is that, you know, you're moving through either a history course or even mathematics. There are topics, 1 through 15 or something like that, but it's very easy for students to know that they have, once they're finished with this page, clicking next I think is the incredibly intuitive way to get to the next piece rather than scroll down the page or something like that. So I'm really excited for this innovation in Moodle. Now, one of the other ways to do, now as far as the progress tracking in Moodle, there's the checklist feature, which is the third-party modded by Thibault Smith, I think, which is awesome, and it has a really beautiful, very unobtrusive and obvious way to display students how much of their course has been completed. And now Moodle, with Moodle 2, the completion tracking does something very similar. So that is awesome, and I think that there are there's some really great ways to provide some additional information to students so that they know what they're moving through and what they should be hitting next. Now, currently we're not using either of those. We're using something much simpler, which is just a text-based topic checklist. So that can be, kind of the minimal way to let students know what they should be doing. So that is how. That's just one of the kind of the base level, I guess I would call, on providing students a way to measure their progress or to see what's next in the course. But by any means, what you want to do is provide every single piece of information that students would need on one page, so that they're never left thinking, I'm not sure what I should be doing next. If that ever occurs to a student, I think that causes some issues. Now, alternative to just a simple HTML or text-based topic checklist is something more similar to kind of giving some context around the different resources and activities within Moodle, and either one works very well. The text one is much easier to update, but I think that they both lend very nicely to providing some context to students and giving them the instructions that they need to move on. That's good to know. I didn't realize that the completion tracking was so heavy. So that's one of the things we'll be trying to fix. Definitely delivering at scale. There have become a lot of other considerations in terms of technology that I'm not going to touch on because I just don't have I'm just not a server person, and I guess my goal is to put 100,000 students in it. I guess that would be a good problem to have if we're having latency issues. So. Now, for some other tools or tools that make for an effective classroom, generally what I'm aiming for is efficiency and effectiveness. So, how do we provide X at 2,000 students, or how do we assess students on 15 different learning objectives across in our course for in an hour-long assessment. So one of the important ways is through assessment engine or quizzes or exams, and that is a extremely important aspect of our current courseware. Now we also do use some assignment management for graded qualitative coursework. So when students are writing essays, generally that's what they're uploading. So we use a two-pronged kind of qualitative versus quantitative assessment scope within our courses. That there are lots of other tools, but when a course is self-paced, not all of the tools are necessarily applicable. So right now we're using very limited tool set within Moodle or Blackboard. We're using only the assessment engine and the assignment upload. And if other tools were kind of introduced to the mix, that can make a lot more difficulties for students, especially if it's if there are some good or if there are some collaborative tools where students are at different pacings or they're at different levels within the course. That obviously adds some interesting wrinkles to how we would effectively manage that classroom. So generally what we're just trying to do is, since students are taking the courses independently, is to do as close to a solid assessment as we can get, and then we also use best practices in the assessment delivery. So one page at a time or one question at a time, huge test banks randomly selected. Each exam per student is different. our exam questions are vetted, and we run QA cycles on them very often. We also give students an easy way for them to flag a question if they think they're being assessed unfairly. So the assessment engine in Moodle is awesome. Like, I can't wait to use it. We're right now converting all of our question banks from Blackboard to Moodle through a Moodle partner. So that is really kind of exciting, that the assessment engine being very, very powerful within Moodle already. I'll touch a little bit also on LTI, which is another kind of indispensable tool, and I think it's while nascent, will be the standard in serving content and assessments in the future. And then, of course, we use the Gradebook, and that's just one way also to show the progression or progress of a student. Displaying that simply is really important, and displaying or to creating a grade policy that is easy to understand from the student level is something that I think we all should strive for. So one example is when for one of the courses that I overtook or took management of, was based out of 386 questions or 386 points, which makes it a lot more difficult calculation in the student's mind when they're trying to figure out, how am I doing out of 100, which generally thinking at kind of the base 10 is much more simple way to see where I'm at for in terms of achievement in the course. I'm not sure what you mean by minimum course standards. We do have all courses we're building all of our courses with a certain number of credit hours in mind. So we're basically using enough content that would loosely, I guess the loosest comparison would be to lecture hours in the class. So we try to get video content or presentation with narrations and animations and stuff like that to a similar level of what students would do. And we also generally use a textbook as well. It can be an ebook, but we're trying to mimic the online delivery of courses that are not self-paced. So students are signing up or doing something on a weekly basis. One thing that we don't currently do is discussion forums, but that's probably something that would be introduced shortly. It's just hard to do it without a lot of if you don't have a certain amount of scale within a course or a certain number of enrolled students, if they all are at different parts, the discussion boards become very much less valuable to students. And as so far as how courses are constructed or are created, is that we use subject matter experts who have direct experience with the exact course. So if we're doing a U.S. history course, for example, we will work with a U.S. history professor, somebody who has experience delivering an online course, to have them look at our content, to vet the entire quality of the content, and then to help us define and solidify the syllabus and all the other course materials. And all of our courses at the course level are reviewed by the American Council on Education and they're recommended for credit. And then all students are also then required to 70% or better passing, but we are not putting any restrictions on how long they take to do that. That being said, we are not currently using any master-based learning. Students have one shot on the exam, so it's high. It gives them a sense of high stakes, but at that notion, the students are not penalized. We're not providing them a grade point average or anything like that. So if they do not pass with 70%, they can retake the course, but we average their subsequent attempts with their original. So there's some different policies that go around to make it so that it's low risk to the student, still is low risk financially, but that they know that students know that they can try. But that failure is not the end of the world. Much different than a semester-based where if at an actual college campus, failing a course or withdrawing could change graduation dates and have a lot of other impacts. So this is it's mitigated in an online rolling admission process like straight line offers. So in terms of the Gradebook, like I was saying, the base 10 I think is definitely the way to go, and all it takes is a little bit of planning to assign point amounts or values to the different assignments that are in a course, and that I have to just take a look at your own. If you know all the assignments that are going to be and you know what specific weights, I think it's pretty well possible to get to a base 10 or a type of point system on the course. In terms of the assessments, I think there's two keys for within Moodle assessments to use, and one is to use the categories for managing and organizing test questions, and that will allow you to basically to create a blueprint or a solid recipe for any of your examinations, so that you can guarantee that students were assessed on all the learning objectives that you're looking for. So if you're looking for 100% proficiency, or at least you're looking to assess 100% of the learning objectives, Moodle's category system within its test banks is one way to easily do that. And so using random question blocks is another way to serve up questions, keep your exams integrity very high, and that's another best practice. Now, one of the other things I think that Moodle does, which is awesome, is the flag question option that's now available in assessments, could allow for a nice closed loop with the student and subject matter experts to ensure that students are getting the fairest shake possible when they're taking the exam. So as a student goes through, if they see a question, or if they see a question maybe that didn't load part of the image or something like that, they can instantly flag it so that somebody can review it on the back end, close that loop from the student, omit it from their grade calculation, so that students aren't penalized for issues with either incorrectly written questions or questions that don't have the right answer, or questions that are somehow not displaying properly. And I think that's kind of an important part. Now, that being said, all quantitative assessments are not the end-all be-all, obviously, but there is, I think they do have a place in assessing students on basic knowledge, and they're an effective way currently that every university is still using quantitative assessments for. Well, by and large, I guess every university is maybe a little risque for me to say, or that may be incorrect, but most are still using that. Traditional higher ed in the U.S. is still embracing quantitative assessments very, very much so. But no course is perfect, so running QA and having a way for students to submit errors for the courses, not only will your courses improve, but I think it invests students into your course delivery, so that they know, hey, it's not just the guru on the stage that's giving information. You have to take everything that they say for, at face value, in making a more flexible approach, or taking a more flexible approach with students, and bringing them into the QA process is one way to make courses improve over time. Now, one of the coolest tools that's available now is Learning Tools Interoperability, the LTI, or in Moodle it's called the External Link tool. That, I think, is going to really change the higher ed industry, and it certainly is already changing ours. So what LTI does is provide a gateway or login credentials where students can be single signed on to another third-party site. This is an example of, right now you can see that the head image is actually the cover theme, and this is on a live Moodle site. We have linked through LTI, the Open Learning Initiative at Carnegie Mellon. They have a lot of open courseware that's available to students, and now you can link from Moodle to OLI to get into one of their stats or economics courses, or microbiology or biochemistry, without having to register at this other site. So potentially what this is providing is a nice feedback loop of providing access to students without causing them to go register somewhere else. They can be assessed, they can engage content, and then they can return back to Moodle, and that grade information or data can be captured either as part of the completion data, or as grades even within the system. So you can do this now with a lot of different services. You can even make Moodle a LTI provider. So you could connect from one Moodle site to another Moodle site, serve an assessment, and then return the student and their grade back to the original Moodle site. I think that's a very cool and innovative way to do this. Now, any learning management system can talk to any other learning management system. There is the one thing that I will throw out there is that for an organization like Blackboard, this enables them to still continue to offer any of their learning management systems but no longer is there an impetus to convert courses, because as long as the content is available within the learning management system that can be an LTI provider, if a institution then goes and migrates to a different learning management system, there's no need to move that content. You can just use LTI to re-access those archives or that course information without making any changes, and you can keep the structure the same. Nothing else needs to change, and it's kind of this beautiful, innovative way, and very forward-thinking, I think, of all these learning management systems to have embraced it and to be certified. So if you're curious about LTI, there's a lot of content providers these days that are embracing it as a way for you to tap their content within Moodle or any other learning management system. It's really effective. Generally, our conversations with content providers in probably last year, or even as long as 9 months ago, we're talking about how do we do single sign-on to your courseware. How do we get the content to students without having them go register somewhere else? And there was no answer, and now LTI is the answer. And yes, the LTI is the external tool activity. You can generally what you'll need is the launch URL, a password, and a secret. And those three pieces of information in combo, as long as they're correct, will allow your students to log into a third-party system without re-registering, and we'll be able to pass some of that information. There are a number of already certified learning management systems, and you can check them all out at this link. The IMS Global CC status chart has the list of a whole bunch of different ones, and we're seeing more and more every day. It's not generally something that institutions are necessarily touting very much, but most of the major publishers, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, and others are already using LTI as the kind of de facto way that content will be available to courses such as in Moodle, but served from a third-party server. So one of the other tools that we use, I mentioned that we are serving lots and lots of assessments. We also are assessing students on a weekly basis for a lot of essays. For LTI, the user, generally they just have to put in their name and email the first time that they register, and thereafter the information is kept on the system. It's just one click and the screens or the new site loads automatically without having any registration or anything like that. It's very seamless, and it's awesome. There's a really great resource, or Gavin Henrik did a LTI presentation. I think it's about 10 minutes long. It was from the UK, Ireland Moot a couple of weeks ago, and he does LTI integration from WordPress to Moodle, which I thought was very cool. So we're serving hundreds and hundreds of examinations every week. We are also assessing students, and they are submitting around 150 to 180 essays every week that need to be graded. And so, how do we do that, and how do we scale from 200 essays a week to 1,000 essays or more? And I think that the way to do it is to create an effective queue management system for grading. So in a sense, you don't grade 100 essays a week, but a team does. So through training and through by effectively recruiting people with the right credentials to provide online assessment, grading for an English composition course or something like that, as long as the staff is adequately trained, has the adequate credentials. I think that's kind of the foundation. Now there's two tools that then provide some other good ways to make it. In a sense, what you want to do is provide an easy way for students to submit, but you also want a very easy way for graders to get into the system and pull a document from the queue and provide the assessment evaluation. So through a queue management system, which I like right now, the Ajax marketing block, which allows a grader to see all of their course currently and a list of all of the assignments that are pending, waiting for assessments or waiting to be reviewed. That is an awesome tool. Makes it, the grader no longer has to go into each course and see if anything has been submitted. It will have a running tally of everything available that needs attention. So that's one of the ways to do it. I think one of the steps going a little bit beyond is to anonymize it so that graders aren't seeing particular names every time, and that will only increase kind of the validity of the assessments, and probably raise the consistency of the feedback, because there's a lot of even studies have shown there is bias even in seeing a certain name. Could be sex related, gender, or it could also be based on just the student's name, what nationality or something like that. And those, removing any bias from the grading process is obviously important. So that plus the rubrics creates a really great way to provide timely and consistent feedback, because as the rubrics are parsed, we can minimize the kind of discrepancies in grading, because we're focused on very narrow subsets of what formulates the grade. We can assess based on, or I guess we can remove the personal bias towards any one particular area, whether it be grammar or content or something like that, by segmenting the grades through the rubric system. So there is another great tool available, which is the Turnitin has a really great feature where you can do rubrics and plagiarism detection in one submission, which I think is awesome. So the Turnitin Grademark system is another way to increase or to add a level of security to the system, because you can catch plagiarism at the same time, and removing that responsibility from the graders or from any staff that's doing high volume assessment. That's an important aspect, because they can focus on the grading rather than thinking or trying to discover whether or not the student has been cheating or did plagiarize. So now in terms of sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself. So in terms of one of the other things I'm looking for is to setting up a high level of security on the site. And you can think of security as not just necessarily like having good passwords, but in a sense, what we want to make sure is that the student is the correct student taking the assessment. So in a fully online course, it's easy for me to, you don't have a webcam on me right now. I may not even be just Thibault giving this presentation. So providing or building in ways to verify an individual's identity is going to be a very important aspect of delivering online courses in the future. And I'm not sure that universities are all that good at it right now, and there's definitely room for improvement. So there are a number of tools that can do it. Part of it is like the IP tracking, which Moodle does inherently. There are some other ways, whether it be biometric, which I think is kind of not very cost effective, and it adds some level of technical complexity. And when I say biometric, I mean like they're actually like swiping their finger over a little device at the that's plugged into their computer or something like that. So those are ways. There's obviously flaws in all of the kind of best practices even, but there are some ways specifically to mitigate that, especially for when we're talking about the two high volume assessment tools that we use, that online examinations and assignments uploading. So two ways to do that. If you are using a lot of assessments or assessing by examination, ProctorU, and there's another system called Software Secure, both offer now web-based proctoring, which is a way for students to they initiate the proctoring session. There's a live person that's viewing them through their webcam, and that can also see their screen. They do an identity verification process, and then it allows the students to start taking the examination. So it's a much higher level of validity from my perspective, and it's relatively low cost. I think they run anywhere from $15 to $25 per session, depending on which of the platforms that you're using. Now, that's obviously a little bit more difficult than when it's an assessment like an essay, unless it's a timed writing exercise. So any essays that are submitted, generally what we're looking for is plagiarism detection, and then using the assessments tools like the rubric to provide a consistent level of feedback. So plagiarism, though, I think is going to be it's an ongoing issue. I think most of the concern around that currently is that students these days don't always understand the difference between properly citing and plagiarism. And really, in an academic standpoint, there is no difference, and that's kind of that's the current definition. So teaching students how to think about plagiarism and citing sources correctly becomes very important in trying to combat what plagiarism actually is. So, I'm more concerned for the student, and this is obviously one way to skirt the system, but paying somebody else to write your paper and then submitting that, if it's original work, it's plagiarism for sure. It's definitely cheating, but it's very difficult to catch that versus a student, stealing from Wikipedia or copying and pasting. That's much more easy to catch. So there's a lot of work that can be done here. This is not an exhaustive list, and it's not necessarily everything that we're doing currently, but it's unfortunately that's all that I can share. And I think it's a good step in the right direction for colleges or for any online course delivery, especially when there's high stakes or when there's credit being offered as a reward for students, or if it's for some type of credentialing system and stuff like that. So getting now into the credentials specifically, one of the things that I think makes a great course is that it is worthwhile to take it. So I do believe in lifelong learning, and I do get into a lot of MOOCs and courses like that. I just took the learning analytics course. I didn't make it necessarily all the way through, but the beauty of a MOOC is that the content's still available to me. So now, I did not get any credit for that. I could have if I had paid, and I think that that's kind of the key, is that to effectively deliver an online course, there needs to be some end result or goal. And currently, that generally is something like credit through either dual enrollment or an actual college enrollment, and it makes it a little bit more likely that I will persist through the course if that's the end goal. It's part of a mission towards, or it's on my roadmap to a degree attainment, that being part of it. Now, there are also lots of other kind of growing and emerging models too, which is badges and alternative credentialing systems and stuff like that, where students are able to track it now. So I think by and large what we're just looking to do is, how do we give students a chance to lay claim to the materials that they have just mastered, through your online course, and how do they then go and show off those achievements? Is it through a badge system like what will soon be available through Moodle and Mahara that Tara is working on? That's one way to do it. Will it be through app sharing or some information that's shared to Facebook, allowing them to share information on their own wall based on their achievements? There are a lot of ways, and this is by no means an exhaustive list of ways to do that. But by and large, what I'm trying to get at is that I want students to, if they're coming to my courses and they are mastering the content, how do we provide some type of credit to them, as it were? So credit is how we currently do it at Straighterline. Students come and go through the course materials, and then at the end we provide transcript to them, and they can take that and pass it off as a course. Check that course off of their degree map as they're working through. A couple other ways to do that within Moodle. The certificate module is just one. And that would be a great way to provide students something that's printable or tangible once they've actually completed the course. So I think that this space is pretty much, it's very much heating up. There's going to be a lot of ways that we'll consolidate mastery learning on the web, either as part of like a badge system like that Mozilla is running, or through Facebook, as a platform to show off your academic credentials. That's probably there may be a very popular app to emerge very shortly. There's going to be many, many, many more organizations like Udacity and Coursera, which are open courseware, or edX or MITx. There will be at some point some consolidation effort of how do I show all of my information on one page. And there's a new site out right now, Degree. They're trying to do just that, where you would be able to pull that information from Khan Academy or from MITx or from the OLI courses that I've taken, or from Harvard or other institutions, traditional college, to show my mastery at certain levels and in certain content areas. And I think that's likely will be the path forward, and especially from a student perspective. I have the most control over a site that I manage. Logging into Banner and seeing all of my courses or my transcript is not very valuable if I want to gain the attention of somebody who I hope to get a job from, or that I want to go intern at, or something like that. So this is going to be really important. These are just two options or two links to information. The badge is linked to the new effort between with Mahara and Moodle that will provide some badge display information. So those were the 5 areas that I was looking at, or 6 areas, and I don't have anything else to share. So I will open it up to questions. If anybody has anything at all that they'd like to ask me, I'd be happy to either talk out of my hat or provide any other information and links. And I do apologize about the audio. Again, these are the delivery of online webinars is sometimes very interesting. Great, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Lewis. And just so you know, I do and have shown off your Moodle themes and all of the developments to our own staff as a kind of best practices. There are really a lot out there right now. I'm a big fan of you and also Stuart Lamore and Mark Johnson. There's some really great Moodle developers around that are tackling a lot of these different areas, especially the aesthetics, and really focusing on delivering the kind of best experience to a student and putting them in charge of their own learning. I'm just going to drop my email in the chat. So if anybody has any questions and want to hit me offline, that is you're more than welcome to. Sure.
Hey Joseph, just like to say on behalf of everyone at Pukunui, thanks for taking your time to do this presentation.
What is the CBM acronym? We have, I think I know what feature you're talking about. We actually have talked about that informally in our at Straighterline, but solely for trying to get after in pre-tests. So to give students a fair shake of pre-testing the material before they go through, and getting them to volunteer, how sure are they about the answer. So if they are answering it correctly, but they are totally unsure about the content, it registers as a guess. Now, some of the, actually there's McGraw-Hill is doing this now with their learning resources. I forget the name of it specifically, but it asks that on every single test question that students are going through. So they answer first, how sure, or they answer what they think the answer would be, and then they volunteer whether or not they were sure or unsure of the question. And they're pulling all that information. That's actually really valuable psychometric data on a course-by-course basis. So
Likely we will explore that in the future. It isn't available right now within Blackboard. But that, in addition to the flag, this question, those are two ways to create a nice feedback loop with students to get more information to then use and leverage that information to provide better assessments. How much do I believe in the notion that all young learners are digital natives? I don't believe necessarily that there is such thing as a digital native. So, let me qualify that with that we very systematically try to remove any learning curve required to take an online course. And so our student population is very much reflective of how online education is growing currently, and online education is growing very rapidly, or the most rapidly, in learners who are 35 and over. So these are very much not digital learners, but by no means are our 35-year-old plus students at any disadvantage to the students that are coming directly from high school to our college courses. So that, I guess, the real answer is that if you are good at removing any of the obstacles or making what we call internally a frictionless learning environment, making it extremely intuitive for the students, then the digital native versus non-digital native becomes a moot point because because you're providing the content. So it's all humans are natively learners, and so I think that providing content, whether it be online or not online, it's just providing a mix of resources, or at least the pathways to students know, my strength isn't in watching this presentation necessarily. It's in the textbook versus, or some other student has the opposite kind of relationship with the content. But when we're presenting it all to them at once, the students know and kind of migrate reflexively to whichever content's going to serve them best. Some are definitely more comfortable than others, but we've had, talking to, first-time online learners taking courses, now in their 50s. This is their, first time that they're actually getting, daily use of a computer. Previously, so a computer was just one other tool to go, check email on. When online courses it takes a lot of resources, interpersonal resources, to try to cope with that migration as things are online. Looking at a screen is much different. I spend 10 to 12 hours a day in front of my computer, so I have a much different perspective than students who are working a full-time job that's not computer related or something like that, and logging into online classrooms. But making sure that they have all the tools that they need in order to go through the course is my number one goal. So it's I can't. If we were only teaching to digital natives, we might be able to use something much more kind of progressive in the way that our content is displayed, or we might have to be able to make a lot of assumptions about kind of best practices in web navigation, or make it more Facebooky and stuff like that. But we just don't have that convenience yet. So as more and more stuff moves online, though, we'll be able to tap some of those kind of intuitive navigation items and stuff like that are kind of by and large or being widely adopted elsewhere. Yeah, and that's it. The perfect course is really suited for any age learner, and that would be the goal. There's a great article the other day about a student, I think a fifth grader, that his dad was a computer programmer and enrolled him in that CS 101 course run by Sebastian Thrun. So he did this very high level course, but was still able to engage it online because the tools were very simple. But I'm not advocating that all fifth graders go take CS 101. you all very much. I think we're all set here. I think there's another session starting in about 20 minutes. Thanks, Lewis. Thanks for stopping in. Thank you, Celine. I hope it was valuable. Sometimes I feel that I'm a bit disjointed in all the stuff that I'm interested in. But the online learning is extremely huge. There's a lot of room for innovative tools and other stuff like that.
Hey Joseph, not sure if you heard me before, but I'll just let you finish answering all the questions then. But yeah, thanks a lot for delivering such an interesting presentation and being so enthusiastic about it as well. Yeah, and thanks a lot for participating in the iMoot.
No problem. Thank you, Mark. And thanks, Julian. Thanks. I wish you were here to tell that joke again.
Julian's jokes, no one wants to hear those again.